Hey everyone, it's your old pal Lindsay with Coyle Tools. Today we're going to look at a Harbor Freight toolbox. I picked up a toolbox from Harbor Freight because a customer asked me to finance it for him, and yes, I do that. I'll finance purchases through non-traditional channels, and this guy wanted a Harbor Freight toolbox in particular. He pointed it out to me, showed me which one, and I go pick it up and deliver it and finance it, all for a charge of course, and give me a good chance to look at a Harbor Freight toolbox firsthand and really pour over it, because I haven't really looked at these before. I've heard good things about them. I know a number of customers who own them and love them, so I figured it'd be a good chance to maybe do a video on one, look at it in detail, and see how well it stacks up against other toolboxes. So today I took the box off the truck to clean it up and get it ready to deliver on Tuesday and also do this video. And I noticed a couple of things that were damaged on it when I picked it up. Let's take a look at the drawer latches. Are these spring-loaded plastic pieces. And one of them on the top drawer here was broken. When I opened the drawer, it flew apart. And you can see the pieces are broken off. And also, this plastic cap on the corner piece is broken. It should just be a regular cap like that. And I didn't notice anything else that's broken, so I called Harbor Freight to find out what to do, and they told me just return the entire box, and they're going to swap out the entire thing for me. Kind of inconvenient considering I got to load it back up on the truck, drive a half hour to Harbor Freight, get it swapped out, then drive a half hour back home. So that's probably a good hour and a half out of my time, but you know, in order to make it right for the customer, it's certainly the right thing to do, but it kind of ticks me off that that was a quality control, because they took it out of the crate when I was at the store, which means the damage did not happen after they crated it up. It probably happened sometime on a warehouse floor. And that does happen from time to time. That's not uncommon. Still, it's inconvenient, but it's just something that we got to make right. So I'm going to load this back up on the truck, head off to Harbor Freight, grab a new one, double check it real good, and then we'll do our review. Well, that was a fruitless endeavor. I'm on my way back from Harbor Freight, where they did not have a replacement toolbox in stock. So I just returned the one that I had, and I'm going to have to see what my customer wants to do. Either wait a little while for me to go to a different store to pick one up, or wait a couple of weeks for the store that's nearest me to get one in under a special order. So either way, there's going to be a little bit of a wait. I'll let you know what happens. The box was ship shape, 100%. I went over it really well before I took it off the property there, and looked fine. So we got a good box that we're going to deliver to our customer on Tuesday. In the meantime, we have a rare treat, because not only do we have our Harbor Freight box, but we also have right across the way a comparable Snap-on Classic 78. Folks, we're going to turn this video into a toolbox comparison. So anyway, let's dig into the practical differences. And forgive, if you will, the lack of sophistication in how I'm going to do this. I'm on the tool truck. I was going to wheel these off, but ran out of daylight, and I don't have a shop large enough to put them both in here at the same time and get some good lighting on it. So we're going to do it the best way we can, and we're going to use some hand lights and stuff. We're going to get up underneath these things. We're going to look in the drawers and look at what the body construction is like, and do some real comparisons. And we're going to find out what it is that we get for our money when we buy a Snap-on box versus a Harbor Freight box. Let's first take some measurements. The dimensions of the Harbor Freight box: 56.5 wide by 22 deep and 42 high. 56 by 22 by 42. In comparison, The Snap-on Classic 78, 54 3/4 wide. By 23 3/4 deep. By 39 3/8 high. So the overall dimensions are about the same, though the Harbor Freight box is quite a bit higher. I haven't done any calculations to know what the overall storage space is. Honey, I just had the strangest dream. I dreamt I was on the tool truck comparing a Harbor Freight toolbox to a Snap-on toolbox. Wait a minute. The Harbor Freight toolbox has a capacity of 21,500 cubic inches, and the Snap-on box has a capacity of 25,000 cubic inches. Alright, looking underneath, we see what the framing is like, and the Harbor Freight box uses these angle irons. Just L-shaped framing pieces welded together. The casters are bolted to two parallel pieces. Here's something interesting. There's a zerk on the casters so you can grease the bearings. That's a nice feature. I don't see that everywhere. By comparison, underneath the Snap-on box, and forgive me because this just got on the truck, so I haven't had a chance to clean it yet. I can see there's a bunch of buildup and gunk on the casters, but we'll clean that up. Anywho, this is more of a boxed frame style, but the frame consists of two rails going down the front and the back. There's no cross bracing on this. That's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just a different design. I don't see any zerks on the casters, so they are kind of gunked up. Oh no, maybe there are. Hold on. Hold the phone. Oh, they do. Okay. That's nice. So they got some grease fittings on there too. Nice. And like the Harbor Freight box, the casters are nicely bolted to the frame. The drawer capacity is measured by the number of drawer slides on each drawer. And different companies use different size slides. Some of the lighter duty applications use slides that have a capacity of 75 pounds each, and some of the larger ones have 100 pounds each. So if you have a drawer that's carried by two slides, depending on who makes the box and which slides they use, it'll have a carrying capacity of either 150 or 200 pounds for the drawer. On drawers that are intended to carry heavier equipment, they'll double up the slides. So on something like this, let's say for the sake of the argument, what I typically see is 75-pound slides on these kinds of drawers. So there's one, two, and then two on the other side, so there's 4 slides. So this drawer, if I have the specs right on the slide capacity, would have a capacity of 300 pounds. By comparison, Snap-on drawers like this, I believe their capacity is 100 pounds per slide, and a drawer like this has 4 slides, so its capacity would be 400 pounds. So you get a higher capacity out of the Snap-on ones. And again, I don't know if that's specifically what the Harbor Freight rails are rated for, but I know on some other brands of box That's what they're rated on. So we'll go by that just for the sake of a comparison. Now, interestingly enough, this large capacity drawer here is intended to hold big, heavy items, your power tools, or maybe cases of stuff, or maybe batteries, and some of the heavier things like, well, like pullers and stuff that really just beefy, solid, big metal tools. The comparable drawer on the Classic 78, though, only has 2 slides. Now, there is a provision to add a second set of slides. So I'm going to guess that you could have a higher capacity in this drawer were you to add a second set of slides there. But out of the box, the Harbor Freight Toolbox has a higher capacity in the deep drawer. Well, let's measure the thickness of the sheet metal that's used on these guys where we can. It's going to be a little difficult, but got my calipers. So let's do a little measuring. All right, let's start with the drawers because they're the most easily accessible. So I'm dealing with some pretty low-grade calipers here. We're just going to do this to get a real basic understanding of what the thicknesses are that we're dealing with. So I'm going to say 0.82 millimeters on the Harbor Freight box, and the Snap-on box is we're going to say 1.39, 1.4. That's significant. Let's see what that translates to in gauges. I Google searched for gauge thickness conversions, and the fine folks at Ted Pella Incorporated, give them a little web shout out or YouTube shout out, had this on their site, so I just copied it. I have no idea who these guys are. I'm sure they're fine people. Alright, so if we look 0.82 millimeters, it's like a 21, 22 gauge, pretty small, as opposed to 1.3. And again, there's going to be some inconsistencies because my calipers are not the greatest quality caliper. Well, it's the 1.3, and the Snap-on one looks like it was about 18 gauge. At the sides, the metal for the body of the box is Harbor Freight box is 1.9. Yeah, 1.9, 1.95, and that is 14 gauge. And the Snap-on box is around 1.1, 1.13, and that is about 18 gauge, or 19, about 18 gauge. It's not too easy to access some of the other parts of these boxes because you can see how they're boxed out in there, and I don't have a good way to measure the thickness. And it's also similar in the Snap-on box, but they have a true double wall in the Snap-on boxes, where these just have like some boxed out framing members. But while we're back here, let's take a look at some construction cues and see what we can see. And it looks pretty straightforward, pretty neat construction, I think. There's nothing that jumps out at me as being good or bad on either of these. Looks like they got some good overlaps in the snap-on box where the side pieces overlap with the back, and overall it looks like there's a better construction build on the snap-on box, but that was to be expected. The tops on the boxes are just a standard rubber mat tops. They both have the barrel locks. The locking mechanisms on these are, well, on the Harbor Freight box, you turn the key in the front and it turns that rod, which slides that piece in the back up and down, and those square holes will catch on tangs in the backs of the drawers. See them there. That's a pretty beefy catch. And on the snap-on box, they're similar. And on the backs of the snap-on drawers is a tang like that to catch on the square holes in the mechanism in the back. Very similar. Both these boxes have a feature that a lot of people like. Lock the lock, close the drawer, and the drawer engages the lock and won't open. And Snap-on's the same way. Nice feature that a lot of people like. Neither of these boxes have cool, nifty features like outlets or power drawers where you can plug in your power tools, but for plain vanilla boxes, these guys fit the bill. Now let's talk about value. What do you get for your money? With either box, you get a good quality box. It would be a stretch to say that one is necessarily better than the other, or the Snap-on is a much higher quality box, but I will say, after looking at the construction, it's probably slightly heavier duty, and it may very well take some stresses that the Harbor Freight box won't take very well. However, the question you have to ask yourself is, am I in that kind of environment where I'd be subjecting my box to the stresses that require me to spend a whole lot more money on a box that says Snap-on on it? Probably not, because most people's boxes sit off to the side in the shop and they just do nothing but hold their tools and they use the top as a workbench. If you're in a shop where you have to move your box every day and park it when you're done with your shift, you may want to look into a heavier duty box because you're going to have additional wear on the casters and some additional lateral stresses on the box as you move things around, especially if, say, you hit a bolt or a nut laying on the floor and it comes to an abrupt stop and the contents of the box shift. You may find that there's additional wear on the joints of the box. So maybe a heavier duty box in that type of environment for that application would be better suited for you. But ultimately, you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? And if you're going to spend $749 on a Harbor Freight box, brand new, versus the brand new price of a Snap-on Classic 78, which I think they're listing at $5,800 or something like that on the website, you have to ask yourself if it's really worth that kind of money. Some people do enjoy having the brand name Snap-on displayed on their box. Nothing wrong with that. And I find that a lot of the younger technicians just getting into it will often go for the more expensive box because of the brand and the mystique surrounding it. Also, some older technicians who have been turning wrenches for 20 years look at having a really nice Snap-on box as a reward for all the years of hard work that they've put in. Either one is fine. Just understand what you get yourself into, especially when it comes to financing options. If you can't afford to pay cash for the box, you're going to have to finance it somehow. And most people will get on a Snap-on credit program or a Matco credit program or Mat Credit, depending on what company they're dealing with. Look at the details very carefully before you do that. because those credit programs are compound interest revolving credit programs, and they wind up becoming very expensive as you make your low weekly payment. But when you look at how much you're actually paying toward the principal balance of the box, you find that your balance may actually go up every month. So put your experiences in the comments if you would. Let me know if you've owned different brands of boxes, or if you've been on different credit programs, what they've been like for you, and share it with everyone else, because it's good information for everyone to know. Too often people rush into a credit decision, and you really need to take your time to understand what the implications are and look at what you can ultimately afford. And I can also offer you third-party credit programs that are simple, fixed interest, that are easy to calculate and easier to see what your total costs are going to be over time. So let me know if you need any help with that. And again, share your experience with me and with everyone else who watches the channel. So thank you very much again for watching. If you enjoyed the video, kindly click that like button. And if you enjoy the content that I give you on the channel, please subscribe. I thank you so much. And remember, use a tool. Don't be one.